right, so it looks like our waiting room has calmed down a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. Hopefully you're in the right Zoom space. This is the new Grad Career Bootcamp for Fall 21 grads. Rising seniors and juniors were also welcome to attend, as well as our summer 2021 grads. So welcome everyone. I love that I'm seeing folks sending intros in the chat, introducing themselves. I love it. Definitely, let's keep the conversation going because hopefully today is going to be beneficial for you all. And we know the more that you put in, the more you're going to get out. So definitely go ahead and introduce yourself if you feel comfortable in the chat. And with that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Larissa Bates. I am the host of today's event, along with my colleague Sandra, who I will have introduced in just a minute. I am the career counselor for business, financial services, and logistics. I've been at SJSU for the last 3.5, almost 4 years. I'm so really excited to be here to support you all as you graduate and enter into the next steps in your careers. And Sandra?
Thank you, Larissa. Hello, everyone. Glad to have you all here today. My name is Sandra Danone. I'm the career counselor for diverse students, and I've been at the Career Center for 5 years now. And again, I hope that you all really take advantage of this event and the different resources and services we'll be outlining as well.
Awesome. All right, and just a reminder, this event is being recorded, so you are consenting to being recorded by being here today. And that's just so that we can share this resource also with students that were not able to attend live. So just a couple of rules to keep in mind. Do make sure to complete that Google form that is popping in the chat. And that's just so that we can verify that you actually attended today's event and that if you have any feedback, you can share that with us. We'll also use that to follow up if there's any slides or information that we need to connect you all with post-event. Just so you're aware, your audio and video should be muted. We will have time for networking, but until then, if we could kindly have you guys keep that muted so that we can focus on our panelists to begin. And then, of course, if you have questions, we definitely want to hear from you all. This event is for you. So if you have questions that you would like to ask any of our panelists, please throw those in the chat, and then we will moderate those during the audience Q&A portion of today's event.
And this is our agenda for today, which I'll go over. So we'll go ahead and share some of our Career Center resources. That will be followed until about 12:35. We'll have our alumni and employer panel with the facilitated questions from the Career Center. Once that is done, we'll follow up with the audience Q&A portion where you all will have the opportunity to ask questions either to all our panelists or a specific panelist. And again, as Larissa mentioned, you could enter those in the chat if questions come up, maybe during the facilitated alumni employer panel piece as well. And then from 12:55 to 2, we'll have our career and employer sessions. Those are our breakout sessions where you can decide which session you want to go into. And once that piece comes around, Larissa will be facilitating that further. And then we will be closing with our just kind of going over resources in case some of you logged on late, and then also our survey. We do ask that you please complete our survey, as that's our way to get feedback on what events you all are finding useful or what you would like to see more of. So that's our agenda for today.
Awesome. And with that, congratulations to our new grads. We're very excited for you to start this next journey in your lives, but we do want to remind you that you have resources available to help you as you make that transition. So this is our winter calendar, which will go until the 21st of this month, January. So you're more than welcome. As a grad, you still have access to Sandra and I and the rest of the career counseling team if you need some one-on-one support. you can email this career help at SJSU, and we're happy to kind of get you some time to meet one-on-one. You also have access to all of our online resources, including Handshake, VMOC, and some of the other platforms that I will show you in just a second. And as a reminder, if you need more, quick questions, support, we do have live chat Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. So you can always jump on our website and get some quick questions answered during those business hours. All right, and just a reminder of all of the online applications that you have access to. Handshake, if you're still searching for positions, definitely make sure you're on that platform. That is where employers have contacted our university and said that they're looking for you as a Spartan. So definitely take advantage of that. SJSU Squared is great if you still need some mentorship in your career field, breaking into a specific industry, getting tips and advice. You can check in with some of our alumni and other professionals on that platform. And then if you're ready for that next step, interviewing, Big Interview is a great platform to check out to learn more about the interview process and also practice your virtual interviewing skills. BMOC, Sandra, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do not have access to this as alumni.
Correct. That's the one app that is only for current enrolled students.
Awesome. But if you would like some resume support, you can always schedule an appointment or take advantage of the free resume resources that are available on our website, 24/7 access for you all. And then lastly, Focus 2, which is our career planning and assessment tool. So if you're still not quite sure what are some of the career options from your particular degree, you can definitely utilize that platform as well. All right, so just letting you all know you're graduated, but you're not necessarily out there on your own for a career. So definitely take advantage of the resources that you still have access to. Meet with us, get the support that you need. We want you to be successful in launching your career journeys. All right, and with that, I will pass it back over to Sandra.
Thank you, Larissa. So here, this is the list of the alumni and employer panels that we have with us for today. And I will just keep this up for a few seconds for your reference in case you want to take a screenshot, as this slide does have their name, as well as their position title and the company organization that they work for. But I will shortly have each of our panelists introduce themselves as well. So moving on to the next slide. So question number 1, and this goes to all our panelists, if you can please introduce yourself, your name, your major that you graduated with, your job title and company name, and briefly describe what you do in your current position. And I'm just gonna kind of go down the list here based on who I see on my screen. Margaret?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Margaret Paulin. I am the Campus Relations Manager for Lockheed Martin. San Jose State is one of the campuses that I do work. I am based in Southern California. Back in the day when I was in school, my major was English. I also have a secondary teaching credential that is still current. What I do basically is I work specifically 6 campuses for Lockheed Martin, and I just build relationships and find students and recruit them to the company. And I'm also involved with student organizations at these various campuses, and again, enjoy working with the students and helping you develop and launch your career.
Thank you, Margaret, for the introduction. I'll go ahead and move on to Stacy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stacy Caceres, and I am a talent acquisition manager at Enterprise Holdings. I did graduate from San Francisco State with a degree in liberal studies. In my role as a talent acquisition manager, I am responsible for all the internal and external hiring for all of our locations within the South Bay, Monterey County, and Santa Cruz County. And I also have 4 schools here in the Bay Area that I recruit at. So Santa Clara University, San Jose State, UC Santa Cruz, and CSU Monterey Bay. And the positions I primarily hire for at my universities are our management trainee internship, as well as our full-time management trainee position. And really excited to be here today.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Diane.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Diane Monda. I'm based out of Beloit, Wisconsin. I'm with ABC Supply Company. My major, my undergrad was in psychology from Beloit College, and I received my master's of education from Troy State. So I am transitioned to a brand new role at ABC Supply. I am the University Recruiting and Relations Advisor. We didn't really have a targeted recruiting program. We just kind of let all of our branch managers kind of go out and do their own thing. And we thought we would pilot for our Southwest and West region this position where I would actually attend the college career fairs and really target the recruiting for our Southwest and West regions and see how that goes. But I also do help the rest of our regions in 49 states sign up for career fairs and get them their recruit material. So really hands-on university recruiting right now for the company. And the jobs that I'm primarily looking to fill are our future branch managers for our over 800 locations, as well as an internship program that we have, and our future inside and outside sales. So really excited to be here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And next, Lauren.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lauren Enneking. I am a recruiter for an organization called City Year. My major when I was an undergrad, I went to Indiana University. I'm originally from Indiana, just recently moved to San Francisco, but I studied journalism in undergrad. And what I do in my current position as a recruiter at City Year is we are a gap year opportunity that partners with AmeriCorps. Our organization works to improve educational equity across the country in public schools. So I work with 5 different schools here in California to recruit people to fill this position, and just kind of enjoy building relationships with other nonprofits in the area, as well as with the different schools that I recruit from. So thanks so much for having me as well.
Thank you, Lauren. And last but not least, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Lopez, and I'm a graduate of San Jose State University. I majored in public relations, and I graduated in 2009. I am the Director of Communications and Community Engagement for the Dublin Unified School District. And in my role, I oversee about 14 sites, and I manage internal and external communications for about 1,100 staff members and over about 13,000 students. And in my role, what I primarily do is a lot of ghostwriting. So I work directly for the superintendent and helping write any communications that go out. We manage the media as well. So anytime that something happens on the news, I work directly with reporters to make sure that they get statements from our district, which is a lot of fun. And I also work a lot in crisis communications. So with anything that happens in a school district, I help advise principals on what to do and even help write communications that they send out to their community. So a lot of the stuff I do is right behind the scenes. But it's a lot of fun in this role. I never thought I'd work for a school district, and I absolutely love it. So it's nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Sarah. And my apologies, I did miss one of our panelists, I think because I did not see her pinned here on my screen. Serena, if
Yeah,
you could introduce, I apologize about that. I didn't see you on my screen here.
It's okay. My name is Serena Mitchell. I currently am the manager of talent acquisition for the San Francisco 49ers. I am actually from Greenville, South Carolina, which is a small town on the East Coast. And I went to school at the University of South Carolina where I majored in journalism. So more specifically, I majored in public relations. And what I do in my current role is I'm responsible for all things hiring, getting jobs approved, compensation of those jobs, making sure that we're honoring those for all for all positions that become available on the business side. So I do not handle football side. I only handle the business side, and I come and speak to students. I connect with colleges, do things like this. And ultimately my goal is to basically show people that yes, we are a football team and we are in the sports world, but we have pretty much every major and every job that any other type of company would have. So looking forward to connecting with you all and telling you a little bit more about our departments and some of the knowledge that I've gained since graduation.
Awesome. Thank you, Serena, for that introduction. We're going to go ahead and move along here to our questions. So for question number 2, and through these questions, just so that we allow enough time for the audience Q&A, we'll be calling out on specific panelists to answer each of these questions. So for the first question, any advice or tips you would give to students searching for jobs or internships? And for this question, I'm going to go to Stacy first.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing to keep in mind is to really do your research. You want to be intentional about, the jobs that you're applying to, and really make sure that it aligns with your career goals and your values. The other tip I have is to also set a schedule for your job search. Searching for a job is a job in itself. So I would recommend blocking time out of your calendar every day to get and dedicate it to a job search activity, whether it be, submitting applications, doing research on companies, or updating your resume. It's really going to provide structure and make you feel less overwhelmed. And I would say the last thing is to leverage the Career Center on campus. Set up time with a career counselor to, help you come up with a game plan when it comes to your job search. I think there's also a lot of value in signing up for career fairs on campus. You're going to get that one-on-one time with potential employers, which I really think will help you guys stand out and also help build your professional networking skills. Other thing you can do is utilize LinkedIn and do research on companies that you're interested in working for, and sending messages to recruiters or hiring managers from that organization to request informational interviews to learn more about the company and to also help with the networking piece.
Thank you, Stacy. Those are some great tips and ones that we often also share with our students. Definitely leveraging LinkedIn, attending events where you can connect with recruiters or professionals. The Career Center, even through this pandemic, we still have been hosting virtual job and internship fairs throughout. So definitely, take advantage of those as well. And for this question, I'll also go to Margaret.
Yeah, well, I think Stacy pretty much stole my thunder here. No, just kidding. No, all great tips. The only other thing that I would add would be really know your resume inside and out, and you need to customize your resume for the particular positions that you apply to. Make sure that you've got the keywords on there. Make sure that you are highlighting perhaps projects that really align with that particular position. So really the customization of your resume, I think, is very important. Make sure, again, that you do meet the basic qualifications for the most part. Desired qualifications are just that. Desired doesn't mean that you need to meet those. The last thing that I would add is, utilize, when trying to connect and learn about other employers and things of that nature, use your neighbors, use your friends. Folks like that can help you. You just never know how they are connected. Again, it's a very small world, and you'll be surprised. So do utilize, maybe it's people at church or whatever social organizations. I would certainly utilize them. Also continue to remain active, perhaps in student organizations, but at the professional level. Maybe it's SHIP, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, or SWE, or maybe it's a business association, things of that nature. But I would continue your presence in those groups as well.
Thank you, Margaret. Those are some great additional tips of making sure that you're leveraging your network, seeing who's part of your network already. and then looking to build further connections, joining professional associations. That's a great tip, as you're going to meet other like-minded professionals in your field of interest. So definitely some great tips. We're going to go ahead and move on to question number 3 now. So for question number 3, how can students best prepare for in-person or virtual interviews? I think especially right now, we're seeing more, just kind of given our current situation, more interviews being held virtually. So even if you have more tips in that piece, but also in person. So for this question, I'm going to go to Diane first.
I think when you're preparing for an interview, just have the mindset that first impression and last impression are going to be very important. So for the first impression piece, I was just really surprised. I did 7 in-person college fairs last semester, and I was really surprised at how many students came out in like shorts and t-shirts and sneakers. And I know it's just a career fair, but you're always kind of like have the mindset that, well, this is a future opportunity. And so dress the part, be very professional. I know even for virtual, you know, just make sure that you do look very clean cut and just dress as, I guess, if you were going to an in-person. I mean, virtual was not a thing back in my day when I was first starting out, but I do realize that there is a big transition to that. But I think even looking professional, like, will boost your confidence, whether in person or virtual. We kind of touched on this already in the first question. Doing the research is very important. So for any job, research the company, because more than likely they will ask you, what do you know about the company? And so the better prepared that you are, the better, you know, you look that you're very interested in the job because you took the time to research interesting things or know things about the company. There's always going to be nerves when you're going into an interview, and the way to combat that is just to practice. Practice does make perfect. So if you can anticipate the types of questions and just practice to get some of those nerves out and eliminate the uhs and the pauses and the stutters that might come. I think the more polished that you can be with practicing those kinds of questions, it will better prepare you for the interview when you actually are in it. The other thing that I would say is after the interview, we are very old school in our company. We like to have our interviewees like reach out and thank someone from the company to take the time to have them in an interview in the first place. So that's why I said first and last impressions are going to be very important.
Thank you, Diane. Completely agree that those first impressions and also your last impression is important as well. And, you know, definitely making sure you make time to practice. Practice does help with, you know, building those interview skills and confidence and, you know, just feeling more prepared for that interview. So for this question, next, I'll go over to Stacy. If you'd like to add anything else.
There you go. Yeah, I think Diane touched on a lot of great things, but when it comes to preparing for an in-person or virtual interview, I think the other thing to keep in mind is, you know, to prepare for interview questions. And I think a lot of companies now are using what's called the behavioral interview technique. And they're using those questions to see how you behaved in past jobs, to see how you're going to behave in a similar situation with their company. And one of the techniques you can use to respond to those types of interview questions is the STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, and result. If you use a STAR method, it's going to allow you to provide, you know, examples or proof that you truly possess the experience and skills for the job that you're applying for. And then you're going to also be able to share examples of how you successfully handled situations in your previous jobs. And since you don't know what types of questions the hiring managers are going to ask, look at the job description and write down all of the skills and qualifications that, you know, they are looking for. And from there, I would, you know, write down examples of when you just displayed those skills. And next to that, you know, write down what was the situation, what was the task, action and result. And then most importantly, you want to make sure that your examples are relevant to the job that you're applying to.
Thank you, Stacy. I think that's a great tip, an awesome tip, and one that we also provide to our students in terms of how to answer interview questions using that STAR method, focusing on specific examples and accomplishments. And definitely great tip, making sure to refer back to that job description, right? Pull out any key skills they're looking for and making sure you already have those examples in mind of how you develop those skills in that specific example as well. Thank you for that. And for this question, Margaret, would you like to add anything else to this piece?
Yes, I would. More from a virtual perspective, I think Stacy and Diane gave, I outlined some great ideas and tips for those of you that are, getting ready for interviews. But from a virtual perspective, since we've been conducting virtual interviews, I have seen, be aware of your environment and what the employer can see. I have seen unmade beds. I've seen roommates coming out of the bathroom. I've seen dirty dishes. These are all things that I do not need to see when interviewing or chatting with the student. So please make sure that your environment is appropriate for the employer. Take note of your walls in terms of photos, things of that nature. You want to eliminate as many distractions as you absolutely can, during the interview. It's okay to have water handy if you need to take a sip of water, but you should not be eating or chewing or any of that because that is very distracting. The other thing that I will mention too is that you need to make sure that you've got a very strong Wi-Fi signal, because sometimes I have seen where we have lost candidates because of Wi-Fi issues. So make sure that you are prepared and tested and your mic is good and all that stuff. But again, I just want to call out the environment, make sure that it's appropriate, make sure you've notified your roommates that you're going to be interviewing so they can not be walking back and forth behind you or whatever. So anyway, so that's my ad, Sandra.
Thank you for that, Margaret. Definitely appreciate those additional virtual interview tips. We heard about making sure to be mindful of your background, what's going on behind you, kind of keeping it minimal so it's not distracting. Also making sure that you let others in your household know so that there's no disturbances or noises. Those are some great tips, and making sure, again, you're still presentable and keeping it still. I tell students, you want to treat it as if it was an in-person interview, right? So thank you for those additional tips, Margaret. We'll go ahead and move on to the next question here, question number 4. And for this question here, we have, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to students to prepare for the workforce? So for this question, I'm going to go to Serena.
Yeah, so some things that I wish I had known before entering the workforce, there's a couple of things. So the first thing is use every day like it's a job interview. I know Diane kind of touched on it a little bit, but after you do the job interview and after you get the job and you walk on campus or in the office the first day, you're still job interviewing. They're trying to make sure, okay, does this person really know what they're doing? How do they treat other people? And other departments are paying attention to you. Sometimes you go into a new company and you're like, oh, well, I'm coming in accounting, but I really want to move over to finance. Those finance people are looking at you. And if you're not doing well in your current role, they're not going to want you on their team. And nobody in the company is going to feel comfortable, promoting you. So make sure that you're using every day as if you're still on a job interview. The next thing is that, make sure that you're respecting all people regardless of their status. A quick little story that I have is I was interviewing somebody for a senior brand manager role, and this person got laid off from their job at another sports team, and they came to interview with us. And it ended up being funny because the person that is there now, that was their hiring manager, actually interviewed with them when they were at a previous company. So the hiring manager remembered that candidate and was like, oh my gosh, I remember you. You were super nice to me. Like, even when I was just a candidate, when I didn't even work for your company, you know, she was more likely to hire him and give him a chance because he was a kind person. But imagine if he had been rude to her just because she was a candidate and she didn't work there, or because she was going to be coming in at a lower title than he was. And then now everything changed and now he needs her help and she's now his hiring manager. You know, people remember things like that. And even when you're in your classes or when you're doing networking events, the same people that are in this group now are going to be people that may be in positions or be at companies that you may want to work at eventually. So make sure that you're being kind to everybody, because you never know where somebody else is going to end up at. And I promise you, my mom always told me, you never forget what somebody smells like, and you never forget how somebody treated you. So those are two things. So just make sure that you're being respectful and being kind to everybody. The last two things that I have that I wish that I knew are, try to have a good understanding of benefits and what you're signing up for. That was something that I struggled with so hard. I'm just now learning what each term and benefits mean. But you know, make sure that you're utilizing the HR department and make sure you're reaching out to either HR generalists or benefits people and just saying like, hey, I don't understand what this means. Can you explain it? Because you are stuck with those benefits for a year and you want to make sure you know they're done correctly. And the last thing is that it's okay. I know you guys aren't going to hear this, but it is okay to reject a job offer. Definitely understand your worth and understand your value and what you're looking for. If you go in somewhere and, you know, you end up getting the job offer, but deep down, you know, like, I deserve more money, or I don't think I'm going to like this company. I promise you there's other jobs, other opportunities will come. Don't feel like you have to take the first thing that comes your way just because, you know, either A, you have nothing else, or because you think nothing else is going to come. So that's my spiel.
Thank you, Serena. I love that, and definitely agree that, you know, respect and kindness can go a long way. And mentioned, I think oftentimes we soon then realize that sometimes the professional world can be smaller than we think. And you might come across this person again, or they might know someone that knows you. And so it is very important to, you know, have that good impression and be a kind and respectful person throughout your process, throughout your career journey.
No, definitely. I see it all the time where I'll send over a candidate and that hiring manager will ask their team, like, hey, I know that you went to San Jose State. Do you know this guy? It seems like you guys graduated around the same time. And either A, the coworker might be like, oh yeah, he was great. Or they're gonna be like, absolutely not. He was horrible. He did this, he did that. Like, you just never know, like, you know, who you're gonna come in contact with. That's why I always say, you know, be respectful, treat others the way that you would want to be treated, and make sure that you're always putting your best foot forward, because people don't forget those first impressions.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And then for this question, I will also go over to Lauren, if you would like to add anything else.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Definitely second all of the tips that Serena gave. I would also add that I wish that I had known to get out of my own head a little bit in the beginning. It was a very anxiety-inducing transition for me to make, to go from, you know, being a student full-time for my whole entire life to looking for a job, you know, to transition into the professional world. And so I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to know exactly what I wanted to do immediately after graduating. And when that didn't happen, it was anxiety inducing. So I would definitely wish that I had known to, like, it's okay to take a deep breath, and, you know, everyone starts from somewhere. And then additionally, I think I wish I had been maybe a little less proud to ask for help from those around me, whether that be like peers in undergrad with me, or family members, or just like connections from other people in my day-to-day that could provide some sort of advice or guidance or something like that. I generally find that people are really flattered when they came to ask for help or advice. So those are two things that I definitely wish that I had known more coming out of undergrad.
Thank you, Lauren, for those additional tips. I'm going to go, for sake of time here, I'm going to move over to question number 5. And for question number 5, we have, what are some of the best ways for students to build a professional network, either through LinkedIn, meetups, or conferences? For this question, I'll go to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. So for this question, I'll give you 3 quick tips. One is to nurture the relationships that you currently have. So those are supervisors that you've had, colleagues, people that you've met in college. Nurture those relationships over the years. That's really important. So for example, the first boss that I ever had coming out of college, I've known him well over 10 years now, and he's somebody that I can just pick up the phone and give a call to. And really those relationships are what are going to take you the furthest in your career. Number two is to take advantage of the programs that your university offers. So at San Jose State University, my husband also went to San Jose State, and he went to a tour that was offered by Chevron. This was 9 months before we graduated. And from there, he met someone who recruited him to a financial development program and was given a job offer, I think 8 months before we graduated college. And that was just incredible because he didn't have to search. So make sure that you take advantage of those opportunities. And when you go to those opportunities, dress the part, dress, professionally, make sure that you bring your resume with you and be very prepared. San Jose State also has mentors and meetups and a lot of different programs that the Career Center offers. I highly encourage you to take advantage of those programs. And then number three is on LinkedIn. This is something I wish I would have done, is only add people that you've actually interacted with. So whether that's virtually or in real life, but somebody that you actually made a connection with where they know your name, those are relationships that you'll want to add on social media, but don't add people that you haven't actually developed a relationship with, because it can almost get a little bit awkward if you add somebody that you've never actually met. I don't recommend adding them on things like Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. Really keep it to LinkedIn, which keeps it professional.
Thank you, Sarah, for those tips. I'm going to go ahead and move to question number 6 here for sake of time, since we'll move over to the audience Q&A, or question number 6, sorry.
So Sandra, you can ask question number 6. That was just if we had some extra time. So
I see.
It's not on the slide, but yeah, if you want to go ahead, and that way we'll give folks some time if they have additional questions for our panelists and they have not put them in the chat quite yet. Guess where we're going is to audience Q&A very shortly. So do make sure to throw those in the chat so we can track them and get as many of your questions answered as possible.
And then also know for our audience that if we're not able to get to your question during the audience Q&A piece, we will have those breakout rooms where if you're interested in connecting with one of our panelists further, you can ask those questions as well. So I'll pass the baton over to Larissa now for the audience Q&A piece.
Sandra, so if you can do question 6, I still see that there's questions coming in from students. So if you want to go ahead and go through that one, I put it in the chat for you all, because I know there were some panelists that wanted to answer that.
Yeah, so for question number 6, can you describe some of the challenges you experienced after graduating as you made the transition from college to career? How did you overcome them? For this question, I'll go over to Diane.
So I think everyone's going to experience a certain amount of challenge, in their career search. Mine, it's very personal and unique to me because I was a former military spouse. So I would say that in the span of 10 years, I moved 6 times. So I really felt like, I was kind of sacrificing my career goals at the expense of someone else. But, that was totally okay. I think how you handle those challenges are really important. Back when I was starting my job search, moving around to so many different jobs was not seen as a favorable thing. It's a little bit different now. But I really felt like I had to explain that. So that was challenging, but I was always very honest and upfront. I never wanted to let people, if I already knew that I was only going to be at a location for 9 months, I wanted to let future employers know that, because obviously they don't want to invest maybe the time and training in someone that will be leaving very shortly, and rightfully so. You never want to burn a bridge. So honesty is very important. How you enter and how you exit a job is very important. And I knew because of my situation, that was even more important. So sometimes I took jobs that didn't necessarily need a master's of education. My most interesting job was I worked at Fort Leavenworth Prison. That's the highest maximum security prison in the military. And I never thought when I was growing up that I would work for a prison, but I always did the best that I could, just for reference sakes. You know, I wasn't getting paid a lot, but it didn't matter. It just mattered what I was doing with the time that I was in a job. And because of my military experience, one thing that I did hear from a colonel in the Army was master the change. And I think that's actually really good advice in career too, because you're not always going to stay in one job. It's not that kind of era anymore. You have to be willing to be flexible in any job that you are into. Technology will change, policies will change. COVID hit us and we didn't know what we were doing, but we had to be flexible during this pandemic time. So things are going to come at you, but how are you going to handle those challenges? Just put your best foot forward, do the best job no matter what it is, even if at the time it's not what you really want to do. So.
Thank you, Diane. For this question too, I will go to Sarah.
Thanks, Sandra. So before I answer this question, I want to preface it with 3 pieces of advice. So one is, remember that when you're starting your career right out of college, that nothing is beneath you. So for example, I started out as a receptionist, and here I was with this, public relations degree. I had a couple internships, yet I was starting at the bottom of the totem pole. And when I came in, I made sure that I was willing to say yes to everything. Whether it was, cleaning the break room or picking up coffee, nothing was beneath me, because I wanted to show them that I was willing to work hard. 2 was strive to be the best in whatever role you end up being hired for right out of college, and continuing forward, because you'll move a lot faster in your career. So in that job as a receptionist, I was able to be promoted in 3 months because I tried to be the best receptionist I could be, and I was able to quickly move into a different position. And 3 is only share unhappiness about your job with people who can do something about it. So that means not gossiping to your coworkers and complaining to people about something you're upset about. Only bring those concerns to your supervisor or somebody who can make a change for you. So the biggest challenge that I had in my career was understanding my own worth. And it's really difficult because a lot of salaries in the private sector, they're not listed. So you don't necessarily know if you're being paid what you're worth, because they'll just offer you something and then it's up to you to really do your research. So one of the things that I did was I made sure that I did the best I could in any position that I was in. I maintained records of my own success so that when I had conversations with my supervisor, I could cite why I should be paid more. I also did my own research to figure out what positions that were similar to mine paid. And then I would have those difficult conversations. So for example, when I was working at one job, I had a feeling that the same marketing coordinator position paid more somewhere else. And I ended up getting an offer somewhere else for double what I was currently making. And so I was able to bring that back to my employer, and they said, yeah, we knew you were underpaid. Here's double. So I ended up staying at my job because I had to have those difficult conversations and make that move for myself. So within 10 years, I've been able to quadruple my salary from what I started with in 2009 to 2019. And, that was doing those things that I said right in the beginning, making sure that you have nothing beneath you, nothing is beneath you, striving to be the best. And then of course, keeping that unhappiness to yourself and only sharing it with those that can do something for you.
Thank you, Sarah. That's a great piece of advice. And for this last question, we'll wrap it up with Lauren. Anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest challenge that I faced after graduating was just kind of knowing where to start. And I think that I remember feeling that, that there are an infinite amount of paths that you can choose to take. And for someone who, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be doing for my career. So it felt like I had to choose a path, and that was my path. And I hoped that that was a good path, but really that's not how it works. You're able to, start out on one path. And then if you decide that it's not exactly what you want, you can pivot to a different one. So I think that just kind of what I was talking about earlier a little bit, just giving yourself grace and you know, just starting out. Maybe a position doesn't check every box that you have right away, but it checks some of them, and that's okay. You'll take that and you'll use that momentum and what you've learned, and you'll figure out a different path for yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren, for that. Definitely, there's not just one career path. We see of people transitioning into different careers as well, and making those changes. So that pretty much wraps up our facilitated panel piece. And we will now move over to our audience questions, and I will pass the baton over to Larissa.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. So love all the questions that I'm seeing coming in. We're going to try to get through as many as we can in the next couple of minutes here. So panelists, I'm going to ask that you keep your answers as succinct as possible, probably to a minute, so that we can get through as many of the questions as we can within our time together as a group. And then for students, if we don't get to your question, save that question. We are going to have some time for smaller breakout sessions with meet and greets with the panelists. So you can always save that question if we don't get to it in the wider group, and go ahead and get it answered in a smaller kind of group discussion. All right, so with that, we're going to go into some rapid fire question answers. So the first one that I have from the audience is, what does looking professional mean in a virtual interview or job fair? Like, how would you go about dressing professional? I know, Margaret, you have some great advice on the virtual interviewing space, so I don't know if you want to take this one.
Sorry, let me unmute myself. Thank you. Yes, looking professional. Again, if you're interviewing, you always kind of want to overdress. So I would recommend that you come in a suit or a sports jacket if you're you want to look neat, you want to look pressed. It doesn't have to be an expensive piece of clothing, but you do want to make sure that you look professional and you just haven't rolled out of bed and have run to the interview or are in front of your camera. So you do want to make sure that you're well groomed, your hair, your nails, things of that nature can all be picked up on camera as well as in person. Your shoes, have you polished your shoes? Again, this is going back if we're in person, but you do want to be able to look like you have put some effort forward and that you are working, that you want this job. Now, sometimes your interviewers will be maybe in polos, but that's okay. You want to be overdressed. It's always good to be overdressed for the occasion. Again, usually a lot of companies now are more business casual, at least at Lockheed Martin, we're business casual. So that means typically a collared shirt, khakis, both for men and women, et cetera. So that would be how I would address it, even for the career fairs. I would make sure that you are dressed appropriately. I would at least come business casual. I would not come casual to a career fair. You don't necessarily have to suit up for a career fair, but you do want to look presentable, like you've put some effort forward and that you want to be there.
Yeah, I think that's really, really great advice. Definitely, I love the tip to overdress versus underdressing for your interview. So if you're not quite sure what the business dress for a company is, probably going more towards the business formal or at very least business casual side, just to make sure you're going to be dressed up enough, because you definitely don't want to be on the other side of being underdressed.
Yeah. Ask the recruiter too when accepting your interview, what's the appropriate dress, just, to see what insight they may give you as well.
Yeah, that's a great tip. All right, so my next question is, if reaching out to the job advisor doesn't get any response, what should the candidate do? And I'm going to toss this one over to, let me see who may be good to answer this. Sarah, is it okay if I call on you for this?
Yeah, of course. Okay. So if you don't hear back from the person that you've applied to, I reach out to, I can talk from my own personal experience. I don't work in the human resources department, but when I've applied for jobs, for example, when I applied for the Dublin Unified School District, I didn't hear back right away. So I followed up with an email to the contact person and I let them know, hey, I had submitted my application last week. I'm really looking forward to hearing back from you soon. Really kept it short and sweet. The great thing about school districts that I think I wanted to kind of share with everyone is that we cover a lot of the field. So everything from IT to business to psychology, public relations, and the salaries are all public. So you can actually see what different positions pay directly on a school district's or government jobs website. So I wouldn't be afraid to send them a quick email to let them know that you have submitted it. And then you can also follow up with a quick question. That's one thing that I did. For example, I didn't have an administrative credential, but I knew I ticked all the other boxes. So when I wrote out to HR, I said, hey, I don't have an administrative credential, but I really feel that I'd be a good fit for this job. Is it still okay for me to apply? And I had a feeling she would say yes, but it forced her to have to reply back to me. And now we're great friends, so it worked out perfectly.
Awesome. That's a great tip, asking, insightful and reflectful questions that show you've done your research. And then I really love kind of the strategy. If there is someone that's specifically listed on that posting, to just shoot them a very quick, simple email, kind of like asking for an update, not necessarily like a full essay. So thank you, Sarah, for taking that one. I know you're not in HR, but I felt like it might be helpful from your perspective of just being a candidate and applying to positions. So the next question that I have is, what are some basic things you recommend an applicant know about the company prior to interviewing? Serena, if you don't mind taking this one.
Yeah, for sure. So the question is, what should an applicant know before applying?
Yep.
Definitely know about the company that you are interested in working in, because nobody wants to work for a company or work for a company at that moment when they're going through an acquisition or going through a merger, or if they're like a publicly traded company, if they're like tanking or things like that. So that's a very important thing to look into, because we all want job security and you want to work for the most secure company as possible. Something else to know is kind of, look and see like who you're going to be interviewing with, kind of take a look at the team, see what their experience was, see where they came from. That way, like let's say that you don't get the job interview, you're able to kind of like take a look at somebody that's in a similar position that you're in and kind of see like their path of how they got there. Reach out to them and say, hey, unfortunately I didn't get the role, but I would love to connect with you and just speak with you about, how you got in your position that you're in now. Something else that I think is important is to understand, do a little bit of research. Glassdoor is a great tool to be able to kind of figure out, okay, how much are marketing coordinators making? Because you don't want to go in saying like, oh, I want $97,000 for an entry-level marketing coordinator. Like 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get that. But if you look on Glassdoor at companies that are either similar or in the area, or just use like a Google search, you can probably figure out, okay, this is about how much a marketing coordinator would make. I would assume that might be what they're making. That way, you guys can make sure that you're on the same foot and that is a position that matches your needs and matches, what you feel like your value and worth is.
Yeah, definitely do your research, right? So you know kind of what the market is like, so you know where you should fall in for that range. And definitely love the advice on getting to know the company and like where they're at in their process. Are they merging? Are they growing? Are they entering a new market, right? That definitely will help you as you kind of go through your interviews to make sure that you are positioning your strengths appropriately. So thank you, Serena, for taking that one. I have another quick fire question, and maybe a couple folks can kind of pop in on this one. Someone's wondering about virtual backgrounds. So how do you guys feel about virtual backgrounds versus like having their rooms, maybe clean space behind them? Is there like a preference for one or the other? And maybe I can have, let's see, probably Stacy. I would love to hear your feedback on this first, and then other folks want to pop in.
Yeah, I think virtual backgrounds are totally okay as long as it's professional. If you don't have a virtual background, to Margaret's point earlier, just making sure like, you're in a neutral space, neutral background. If you have anything on your walls, make sure it's not offensive, and be mindful of, maybe an unmade bed, or anything else that might distract the interviewer from what you're trying to say. So that's my take on that piece.
Awesome, totally great. Anyone have any different feelings or kind of want to add to Stacey's comment?
A nice blurred background works. That's like the easiest one, is just to just blur it out.
Great idea. All right, so I think I have one last question that I'll address as a larger group, and then as I mentioned, if I didn't get to your question, save it. We'll still have time for you to connect with the panelists in smaller groups. So absolutely don't necessarily leave that question on the table, but definitely make sure that you take advantage of this space and get that question answered today. So this one is necessarily targeted to any specific panelists, but just in general, this person is wondering, would you say that your job specifically is more about knowing people in the industry before applying to a role? Or was it just more about making the right connection at the right time?
That's a good one. I can kind of go really quickly. I mean, working in sports is definitely pretty difficult. And I feel like everybody kind of wonders, like, how do I get in with them? And, I'm definitely thankful at the fact that my story, as far as like how I got in with the 49ers, I literally just applied. Like I applied, they called me, I got it the old fashioned way, which I appreciate, because I feel like that's what a lot of people want to hear. They don't want to hear the story about, yeah, my dad's best friend's cousin's brother is the vice president and he sent my resume. Like, you want to feel like, you kind of got it on your own. Not saying that networking doesn't work, because I mean, it does definitely work. But, I guess my answer to the question is, it doesn't hurt to try to get to know people within the company, but don't doubt your own ability. I'm really big on confidence, and just be confident in yourself and your ability, to the fact that even if you don't meet one person that works at a company that you want to work at, that your resume and your experience speaks volumes to the fact that they want to call you. And then maybe you can be in that position to start networking with other people.
I love that, and definitely appreciate you for sharing your story. I definitely know with certain industries, art, sports, and in some cases, tech companies, right? There's a lot of pressure of like knowing someone in the industry. So I'm sure it's really refreshing for a lot of folks in the room to hear that that is not always the case, that you can apply online, get the interview, and land the position as well.
Yeah.